Welcome to Local Leverage, your competitive edge in business. Our guest today is one of the more well-known figures in the home service business space who's built not one, but two seven-figure home service businesses from the ground up, including Valley Christmas Lights and Slam Dunking Junk in Arizona. He's the founder of Home Service Accelerator, a resource and community platform that's helped over 300 small business owners scale with proven, repeatable growth strategies. He's known for his tactical, no BS approach to sales, marketing, and operations, and has become a go-to voice for the home service pros who want to scale. Whether you're in the trenches or already running a team, this episode is packed with hard-earned wisdom you can actually implement today. Let's get into it with the head of Home Service Accelerator, Steve Hunsaker.
Thanks for having me, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. It sounds like you've had quite a journey. I mean, a lot of folks get into home services and slog it out. You've manufactured two seven-figure income businesses out of this. I'd like to know a little bit more about what that journey was like.
Yeah, man, it was fun. So only one of the home service brands is there now, and it's kind of like the combination of two. The other one is one of my other portfolio businesses is on track to hit seven figures separately. But
Great.
I want to be clear that I don't have two separate $1 million home service businesses. But I don't know. It's just on the internet. Everybody always, especially people that are in like the info world like I am, they always exaggerate. So I always try to really be like down to the cent honest and like don't try to embellish the numbers on anything. So
well, I love that about you, and I'm going to tap into that in a second. Another question, but yeah, tell us about how you started and got into this, and how you built these businesses.
Yeah, so the main kind of like thing that got me into the having a little bit of a voice on the internet about home service space is the Christmas light business. So I started that 5 years ago, and essentially what we do is I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona. So somewhat of like a little ritzier town kind of thing, but most states and like have a pretty similar kind of market to Scottsdale. At least major metro states would. And so what we do is we like kind of have a high-end Christmas light installation company. So we do like temporary Christmas lights on like high-end homes, it's like small, more boutique hotels, bars, restaurants, churches, things like that. And I started that 5 years ago as kind of just like a passion project while I was doing sales for a company that was like selling payroll software. And that was like mid-pandemic. And so I obviously like...
All phone sales then?
Yeah, I was an in-person sales rep, and then they moved us to remote, and I was essentially cold calling, CFOs of 2,000 employee companies, trying to get them to switch payroll services as they had just laid off like 1,000 people.
Yeah, right.
So I was like, this is, I was getting just the classic. I was getting mother effed on every cold call. And I was like, I'm not doing this, man. And like, it's funny because I tell people that, and now when people talk about that time, they're like, oh, that was so stupid. But during that time, it was very real. Like there wasn't like in 2020 and 2021, there was moments where we were like, dude, I don't know if this thing's ever going to end, like after the like 2 weeks to stop the spread thing. And so once we got past 2 weeks and the spread was not stopped and I was still remote, I was like, dude, I got to find something else to make money. Because like one, my commissions were getting slashed. Two, I was like, I can't do this for longer. And so I found the Christmas light business on Reddit, like just like a sweaty startup Reddit. And then I found some of the groups and did it. And so I did that one for, in the first year, we got a little bit of traction just simply because I had a sales background. Like I could at least convince people to give me their money. And then I learned the kind of operational side as we went. And so we fast forward to now, we just finished year 5. I've got 3 vehicles on the road. Now we have a 4th in that business. We've expanded into the new like permanent color changing lighting side of things. And that's like the main home service business. Now in the past, I had a junk removal company to keep my crews busy year round. And then that ended up turning into like a pretty decent sized home service business as well. But the problem and the kind of decision I had to make in the last maybe year and a half or so is the junk removal business got here and then the Christmas business got here. But the Christmas business has like, our biggest problem is we don't have enough time. Like we have an endless supply of leads, endless supply of whatever. And
Great
so what's
problem to
happening
have.
is yeah, it's a good problem to have, and I'm very fortunate for that. But the issue we were running into is like, because some people found my content from the junk removal, because I documented starting that business from scratch on YouTube like 4 years ago. And so the issue I ran into is eventually they started taking from each other. Like when you're just like an owner op, you can do both, because like, okay, obviously can't sell Christmas lights in June, so I'm going to do something else. And so we came to this inflection point this year, pretty much at the end of last year and into this year, where we were like, they're actually taking from each other now. Like we're subbing out junk and basically all of Q4 to like someone else. None of our processes are working. We're basically starting like from like scratch on commercial opportunities every single January. It just gets gross. We would lose a lot of commercial contacts during Christmas season. And so I'm in the process of selling off that business now. And so we're all in on the permanent lighting, the Christmas lights, and then I have the Home Service Accelerator, which is kind of the more online
I think it's fascinating. It seems like in home service, so many people come at it the other direction, right? Where they start with cleaning or they start with junk, and then find this opportunity of lights and go that direction. You went at the opposite. It's kind of cool.
That's a really good point, and yes, you're 100% right. That's funny. No one's ever said that to me, but you are 100% right. I noticed that very early. Like that was really rare that we were the standalone Christmas light company. Almost every Christmas light company in our market, even still, is window cleaners that added Christmas, pressure washers that added Christmas, landscaper that added Christmas. And so we actually use that and still do use that as a selling, like a unique value proposition about why they should use us.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think, and just for those that maybe don't have exposure to it, the lighting business it can be really lucrative, and the ticket values are pretty high. You're talking like what, 3,000 plus to do lights.
Yeah. So on the temporary side, our average ticket's 3,800, and that's like residential, commercial, all that roped in. So that doesn't mean we don't have $2,000 residential jobs, $1,500 residential jobs. But we also have $30,000 residential jobs. And so like the average comes out to 3,800. And a lot of the time, I think like when you talk about lights, depending on who's listening, I think a lot of the time what I've seen is like there's a lot of different ways you can run a lighting business. And so some guys are like going to Home Depot and buying Home Depot lights, and like they're like, yeah, I charge $450 for a one story, or $250 for a one story and $450 for two. And they're like happy to make $350 in a day doing that. Ours is like completely different. And so a lot of guys hear that and they're like, I just don't believe it. There's no way. One, we've documented it. Two, like ours is ultra high end, ultra custom. Like we're talking $5 million to $10 million houses usually. We've built a brand in those communities. We're charging like $10 a foot on the roof lines, and $52 a strand for like wrapping around trees.
Wow.
But our quality of work is just better than everybody else's. And so it's kind of funny. Like people are like, that's ridiculous. I can't charge those prices where I'm at. And I'm like, no, you can. You're just not better than anyone else. Like, so like if you're going to charge $10 a foot and your competitor's charging $7, and when they're done with you, they can't see a distinct difference between what you're doing and what the $7 a foot person's doing, then you're right. You can't. But like
that's an interesting leap of faith moment, right? Like you're having to explain that differentiation maybe to a consumer. So these folks are out there and they're muddying the water in your market with these kind of really cheap, ridiculously cheap product and service dollars. How do you make sure you stand out? How do you quickly differentiate yourself in that?
I think what people don't understand, especially in the lighting business, is like how much brand and like the way you're perceived actually matters at the time of quoting. And so the big thing for us is like, if I was selling this in West Phoenix, it wouldn't work. And so I think what a lot of people don't understand too is you're probably getting in front of the wrong people. That's like number one. And so, for example, I've spoke at a conference, a Christmas light conference, for like 4 years in a row now, or 3. This will be my 4th this season. And I don't usually tell people when I give my speech where I'm from, because usually there's going to be a lot of Arizona people there. And so I try not to like wear my branding or anything. Now, like people kind of in that industry know who I am a little bit, just because I'm so out there at those conferences now. But in the past, I hadn't, because I always knew that after I gave my speech and I talked about our pricing, guys would come up to me and tell me, oh yeah, that won't work in my market every time.
Exactly.
And I waited for this one moment where this group of 3 dudes came up to me and said, that won't work in my market. And I said, what market are you in? They were Phoenix. And I knew it would happen. I knew it would. And it did in Chicago 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. And so what I always tell these guys is, you're probably selling to the wrong person. So let's get that one out of the way first. You're never going to sell an ultra white glove high-end service to somebody who makes $60,000 a year. It doesn't matter if you're Alex Hormozy and Grant Cardone and the greatest sales people in the world combined. You're never going to convince a $60,000 a year person an income to spend $5,000 with you. They're just not.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's not
for
fun.
lights.
Yeah, exactly. For Christmas lights. And so that's number one. So you got to be in front of the right people. And then 2, what's really interesting is, like, there's a lot of bad advice in these forums, because like in the Facebook groups and everything else. And so what happens is there's almost this like negative feedback loop of these guys in these Facebook groups who are like, oh yeah, selling in person's a waste of time. We only sell remote. We only quote remote. Too many quotes. I have 500 quote requests every 2 weeks. I could never go in person. And meanwhile, we're over here like, yeah, I wouldn't go in person either if my average ticket was $800, but I'm going to go in person because my average ticket's $3,800, and we close like 1 out of 3.5 in-person quotes. So that ends up making a lot of sense. Yeah. And so that's the other thing too, is like, I have 2 1099 sales guys that are going out after we pre-qualify leads, selling in person. And typically what we find happens there is typically the people will be like, oh, we just want this. And then our talk track's going to always be, oh, awesome. Yeah, we can absolutely do that. Now, I am a designer. Would you mind if I threw in some options that I think would complement this really well? And then if they say, no, we're good, then we're like, okay, cool, no problem. I'm just going to throw in like, there'll be a wreath on the bottom and some other stuff. Just don't check those boxes on the quote and you'll be fine. They auto-populate there. But for the other 90% of people, my sales guys will go crazy and be like, oh, like, you know, this color here, put a wreath here, put 2 little wreaths over here, whatever else. And then this is the sauce that I think like most people get wrong in the quoting side. I'm sorry if I'm getting too technical.
No, please. This is great.
But I will die on this hill. We give zeroed out quotes. So like when the customer gets the estimate for our products, none of the boxes are checked. It just says 0, and we force the customer to shop. Like we force the customer to go in and say, I want this part of the roof line. I want this tree. I want this tree. Nice. I want this tree. And then they feel and we've tested this and we know that it's the better option. They feel like they've been given the illusion of choice, versus what like most people do is they send the full enchilada estimate, or they give like the good, better, best. And then the customer's just confused, especially if they're getting multiple quotes from people. It's like, it's too much work. And so what I always tell my sales guys in that too, and this is across any home service business, is like most, like you want to close people on site, but when you're selling a multiple $1,000 thing, it's not realistic always. Yep. But you should have an estimate and a quote that is so crystal clear as to what they're purchasing that you could take your estimate, your quote, give it to a stranger on the street, and they should be able to, without the conversation that happened in person, be able to be like, okay, this is clearly what's being quoted. Like there should be no like, oh, we talked about this in person. They understand that. We talked about this. Because what happens is like you quote the wife and then she's the sales rep for the husband. You quote the husband and he's going to sell it to the wife. And it's going to get lost in translation, and what they're going to end up doing is go to the cheapest company almost every time.
Exactly.
And so
I love this. This is great.
Oh, good. Okay.
This kind of reminds me of that the concept, like, you know, the unclear mind is not gonna buy, right? Somebody that's confused is not going to make a purchase, right? So I like the way that you're doing that. I think that approach is really wise, and it's probably highly likely that they end up saying, you know what, let's go ahead and wrap that tree as well, right? Even though we were only going to do just that one drip line, let's go ahead and wrap that tree.
Yeah, that's what we've seen too. And so that's probably the thing, like, so, and again, I'm pretty public about the numbers because I do have a paid community. And so for people to buy the paid community, I have to like prove that I'm worth buying the paid community from. And so I'm pretty public about my numbers. And so I don't say this to like brag or anything. I say this to like pre-qualify the advice I give. Like, I can speak really highly with a little bit of authority on a temporary Christmas light leasing model business because I know that we're probably in the top, 0.5% of companies in the country. Now, I'm not going to be the guy to give you advice on how to exit for 9 figures or anything like that. That's not me. I haven't been there. Like, I'm not even going to give you, I don't even tell people I'll teach them how to get them to $1 million because I've only done it once. But the advice I will say, like, and I will fight anybody on this, like at the conferences, the thing I get the pushback the most on is that quoting thing. Because guys say, oh, if I itemize it out, I'm going to leave money on the table. And I firmly believe that you end up getting more from your smaller opportunities by doing that. And the big ones were always going to rip the whole thing. Yeah. Like the people who were just blank checking you anyway, were just going to blank check you. But you lose the people because what was happening 2 or 3 years ago is, we'd give somebody a quote and they'd be like, yeah, we want the roof line, we want the trees, whatever else. And then like, just give us the option on the other stuff. Like, just like throw it in there. And so the customer would get a $7,000 quote and they wouldn't even open it because they'd get the sticker shock of like, what the,
Absolutely.
like, what? And so they won't even open it. And I think people in the home services world think that like they're the only company in the quoting process or think that like they're more important than they are to the buyer. And then the buyer like has no emotion towards you really at all. Like they just like, they want it simple. They want it very clear. They're not going to put even half the thought that you put into what you quoted. And so if it's not like so easy a kindergartner can understand it and then give them the choice, then you're going to lose. And like, that's why I think we've been able to keep it going the way we have while there's been, there's 10 times as many companies now than there was 5 years ago in Phoenix doing this. Oh, yeah. It's like, it's been like insane.
So, okay, I want to transition into kind of the coaching side of this because I think it's really fascinating to me. But one of the things that you say that I really love is kind of like, I'm not your guru. I just figured this thing out, right? So there are so many gurus these days, like especially in this area where they're, talking about, all the things to do and how to get rich quick. And that's probably not the case for most people. And so I'm curious, one, how you got into the coaching. What made you decide like, okay, I've got this figured out enough to where I want to share this with others? And then secondly, like, what did you identify as the most common problem that others in your space are facing and how that you could solve it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the first thing, I say like, I don't use the 2 C words, coaching and course. So like, I don't actually like call it that. Because one, exactly what you were saying in part one, I want to be really careful with where I'm at in terms of my entrepreneurship journey and not guru-fy myself and act like I have all the answers when I don't think that I'm qualified to like go out and tell, these people, this is exactly what to do to get to, 10 million or whatever else. Leave that to Tommy Mello, leave that to everybody else. My exact like value proposition in my community is like, okay, I got to $1 million all within the last 5 years. So I started when I was 24 years old. All of the stuff that I did to get to $1 million is relevant now. Like not a person who got to 100 million or whatever else 10 years ago where even word of mouth was better. Like I tell people like, this is what I'm doing right now. This is how I'm running Facebook ads right now. This is how I optimize my Google business page and it's working for me right now. If you want to see and build with me in my community, this is what we're doing right now and what is working for us right now. I don't have all the answers. I will document and build the exact systems that are working for me at this moment in your businesses. And then we build a community around that. And I think that differentiator has like been, well, I mean, clearly we're about to have our 300th person come through the accelerator. And it used to be $3,000. Now it's like $3,800, like something around there. It's a 90-day thing. We'll build out everybody's Facebook ads for them and teach them how to do it. We optimize their Google Maps listing and like turn their Google Maps into like money printing machines because like 99% of people do that completely wrong. We fix their branding, get them set up on actual systems and automations that like make sense. And what we've seen from doing that is it's an info product kind of with like a community feel to it. Yeah. But what we've seen is like people are oddly refreshed by that on like my YouTube, my
I think so.
Instagram,
It's very authentic.
my everything. Yeah. And so like a lot of the time, like my sales guys, cause I don't do all of like the fulfillment calls anymore. I've instructed my sales guys to say like, this is not coaching. Like there's an element of it in there, but there's also the element of like, you could say that like any communication in the community is people coaching each other, right? Like in the Discord,
Right.
whatever else. But I tell people, if you're looking for someone to motivate you and get you out of the bed, that's not me. Like this is just the systems and processes that have worked for me and continue to work for me. And if you want those, then you can come in. And it's funny because it's pretty like anti-marketing, right? Like typically marketing is like, come in, we're going to get you to 100K a month or you won't pay, or we're going to get you to 500K a month or you won't pay, and all these crazy guarantees. But I think especially in the info product market, people are so kind of burnt out by that messaging that the way I go about it is like oddly refreshing, because people have been guru-fied so many times.
Absolutely.
They're sick of it and they can smell a rat now. And
Absolutely.
I think that's why it sells a little bit better.
No, I think that's really good. I mean, I personally, even, myself, I get so much value out of kind of that community element, the collaboration with other folks that are going through the similar challenges, right? That is extremely valuable. And then on top of that, to have the frameworks and processes or the playbooks, it just makes it all come together. I don't necessarily, to your point, man, I don't need somebody to puff me up every day. That I got to do for myself, but I can absolutely leverage other people's experience and knowledge.
Yeah. And what's interesting? We found that like the quality of customer that was looking for like, I want to be one-on-one with Steve being coached. Like if that was the thing getting them into the program, they actually were a terrible community member. So like that was also like, if that's because they're typically like in that case, not always, but a lot of the time in that case, if they were coming to me and had seen my content, it's pretty clear that that's not like what I was trying to do. And so if they're trying to do that, they're just like looking to be saved, for lack of better terms. So they're kind of going into the relationship with somewhat the wrong idea.
Yeah.
And so that was interesting. But the other side that's pretty interesting too about ours is it kind of goes against what most people say to do in that space, which is like hyper niche down. And I think it's actually ended up helping us and helping the community long term, because most other info product coaching course communities that whatever you would attempt to lump us into, I think we're a service-based business personally, but it's kind of a unique thing. But
yeah, that's really cool.
Most people say like you got to niche down. So become a window cleaning coach, become a Christmas light coach, become a whatever coach, like niche down your audience. We are all home services. So I have electricians, plumbers, window cleaners, Christmas light guys, pressure washers, junk removers. And what's really interesting there is like the industries like have breakout channels where they can talk with each other. But what's interesting is you start to see that it doesn't matter what trade you're doing, whether you're a plumber, an electrician, an HVAC, the fundamentals are the fundamentals. And like the things that work for me in my business can also translate to you and work for you. And so like, for example, if it's a really highly converting Facebook ad that I made for, my junk removal business 2 years ago, is the script that's, we called out who we are, called out the location, who we are, what we do, why we're different, cracked a joke. If I give you that script and you throw it in a chat GPT and you say like, replace this with my plumbing company's whatever, you can then recreate that same high performing ad in a plumbing company or in anything else. And the process is largely the same. And so that's been super interesting too, is we have like pretty similar success rates and stories across all of the industries, where like a lot of the time the guys who buy industry specific coaching programs end up joining Home Service Accelerator after, and like the more broad product ends up being better for them, which is kind of cool.
That's
whatever
all right.
it is.
Yeah, that's really cool. And sometimes people need to go experience something else before they can really appreciate, what you're providing, which is great.
Yeah, I also think that coaching, like from a business standpoint, like as a business owner standpoint, like is not a very scalable business, because like if you're like, I do 2 group calls a week, and then like occasionally like do other stuff like pop-up stuff with the community, and they all have access to me on Discord and all of that. But what's really interesting is like if you are doing one-on-one coaching, if you have 30 clients and they're getting a 30-minute call a week or an hour-long call a week,
you're done.
You're done.
Yeah.
And like then what happens is like the only thing that suffers is the quality of the calls for them. Like after 2 weeks of that, you're going to want to jump off a bridge.
Oh yeah.
And then you go to
absolutely.
small group coaching and it's like, okay, whatever else. And then it goes like, down the line. And that's been really clear. Like I've bought some really good coaching programs and I've bought some really bad coaching programs. And one thing that I thought the good ones had was it was like heavily productized. Like I could go do part of it at 11 p.m. I could go do part of it at 1 a.m. on my own time. And that was like a big thing that I built out like crazy. So we built out like basically an entire college level education of like home service marketing, home service scaling, stuff like that.
I think the point you're on too is, I mean, certainly applicable to the home service business itself. And quite frankly, I think most small businesses, which is to the degree that you are the product, you're going to be capped, right? You have to then move from the technician to the operator to the leader, right? And it's kind of that natural evolution. Otherwise, you're going to have that ceiling where there's only so many hours in the day and there's only so much energy you can put out, right?
Yeah, I'm curious. What do you think about? I actually just talked to somebody else about this a little while ago. I'm curious what your take is. I am biased, so I always think the way I did it is the best. But when I got out of the truck, and even when I scaled Home Service Accelerator, the online business, I did it the same way, where I always go, okay, I'm doing everything in the beginning, and then I always outsource fulfillment first. So in Christmas, it was doing the actual installation. It was, doing the job itself, being on the truck. That's the first thing that I train people to do. And Home Service Accelerator was like the onboarding calls and like the tedious work, like get myself off of that as quick as possible.
Yeah.
And then, so I always went, do everything, offload ops, offload the phones, offload like customer management, and then take myself off of sales. So that was like always the last part was sales. Do you agree with that?
I'm in pretty close alignment with that. So
Okay.
I mean, I think I believe that you're operating, you're doing all of it to begin with, and the first thing you should offload is the administration piece. So that would be who's managing your calendar and the communications and so buying back some of that capacity as the owner leader, and then moving towards success support, like the engagement with the customers, followed by kind of the operational, some of the fulfillment. And I agree that kind of the last piece that I likely would farm out would be the sales piece in this business. Although in other businesses, I think that there's a good argument to bring in sales resource or to transition that earlier, especially if you're not as strong in that area. Right. So if you can look in the mirror and go, you know what, this is not my strong suit. I'm a great technician or I'm a great people person, but I'm not good at making the sale, then maybe you need to accelerate that. But I always start with the administration first.
Yeah. My one pushback on the, like, if you're not an amazing salesperson, like maybe do that is like, if you're like the solopreneur, like let's assume that we're talking to a solopreneur here.
Yep.
If you can't sell your product, it's going to be really hard to hire somebody else to do it, because like as the owner, you should know from like a marketing standpoint, what are like the unique value, what are the unique selling, facets of the business. And then from a sales perspective, like what are the things that we like, what are the bullet holes from our other competitors that we can just like poke into that bullet hole on the sales process and like make it hurt. If you're going to bring somebody off the street, it's going to be really hard for them to think like that, because most sales guys worth their salt, Yeah, no,
I mean, I agree. You've got to be able to articulate it and to load their lips, if you will, or give them the understanding of why you're different, why you're unique. So I totally get that and agree with that. It's interesting, I think, I don't know if you ever read the E-Myth, but it's, there's this commonality in small businesses where you start effectively as the technician, right? So, I'm a carpenter working for a contractor, and someday I'm just like, screw this, I'm going to become the contractor. Or I'm automotive technician working for a shop, and I'm like, I could run a shop better than this. And then all of a sudden, you're faced with, oh shit, like I've got to do bookkeeping and I got to hire people and I've got, sales and all these different things going on. And I mean, that's kind of a natural thing. And then the challenge then is that the thing that you really love doing, or maybe that you're really good at doing, all of a sudden you're doing very little of. Like if you were, a roofer and you're up on the roof doing that all the time, and all of a sudden now you're the roofing contractor, and now you're writing quotes all day and you're hardly ever on the roof and you're not outside as much. It can be very challenging for a solopreneur or entrepreneur to make that transition effectively.
Yeah, that's the E-Myth thing is always like the main tone of that too is always like the thing you did that you love ends up being like the thing you absolutely hate the most.
Could be your trapping. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, It makes sense. Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about, for the folks that you're working with. I mean, I know you've got people that are, maybe at the very low end, they're doing 10K a month, or they're maybe getting to 50. Like, what are the natural inflection points, or the points at which the people you work with reach bottlenecks or constraints that they need help moving through?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. So most of the people that join are probably somewhere between 10 and 100K a month. That doesn't mean like some people don't do bigger. So I feel pretty equipped to like tell somebody what to do if they're doing less than about 400K a month, because with the Christmas light business, we do 800K over 2 months. My operation is built from a sales, marketing, ops standpoint to, do, 4.5 to 5 million a year. Like it just so happens we seasonally can't do that, but I have 30 something employees going. Like I have to, that's the game. And so as long as people are within that range, I feel pretty comfortable with it. But basically the bottleneck and the thing that I've seen crystal clear now as we're approaching 300 of these people is depending on the trade. So the average ticket will be why there's a little bit of a range to this range. But like you get from 0 to maybe 200 to 250K off of just piss and vinegar, like just hard work. Like you get to about that in most trades with like, piss and vinegar maybe, and we're talking top line revenue. If you're a window guy, probably closer to like 100K. If you're an HVAC guy, probably 200, 250. That's why I'm saying there's a range.
Yep.
And then you get to like 100 to 500K, depending on what your thing is, like up to 500K in those ranges. Maybe like 600-700K if you're an HVAC guy or a plumber or something like that. Right. With just like sales and marketing. Like that's like you add that, you outsource that, you get to there pretty easily. And then what I find is like you get to 750, a million, and now a million plus off of just systems. Like every single thing is just a culmination of systems. Push, something breaks, fix it, new system. Push, something breaks, new system. And so if we're looking at it from a marketing standpoint, it all just becomes math. Like, okay, for example, I've got 2 sales guys. I know that those 2 sales guys can have 8 sales appointments a day each with a 30-minute driving window between each one. They can stack some wherever else. Okay, cool. I have 16 sales appointments a day. Great. Fantastic. Now I go, okay, what's my cost per appointment? Let's go look at marketing. Okay, great. If I run Facebook ads and I'm running Facebook ads for, $100 a day and I'm buying 4 sales appointments, qualified sales appointments a day from that, then I'm going to spend 200. Am I getting 8? No, I'm probably getting 6 or 7, but it's still working. As we scale, it starts, whatever else left.
Yep.
And then I just keep going and I keep going and I keep going. And eventually it's just like, okay, I'm spending like in season, I think in Facebook this year, we spent 10 grand in 2 months, which like some guys hear that and they go, that's a lot. And some guys hear that and like, that's absolutely nothing. We spend 5K a day,
Right.
Like some of these plumbing companies and HVAC companies, they're spending like 6 figures a month. Some of them even more. And so, but it's just math. And so what happens is like, okay, I scaled the ad spend there. And then imagine that I put $10 into the machine, it spit out 100. It's like, now I'm going to put 20 in and see if it spits out 200. And you just keep doing that, and then something breaks. And so whether it was like in this scenario, it was like, okay, sales guys don't have as much time. Like now our appointments are being booked out till, 2 days in advance, time to hire another sales guy. Or operationally, the sales guys are selling so much that now their close rate is suffering because they are selling stuff and we have a 2-week advance notice for installs. And then that becomes the new problem. Then you go fix that problem. And then you keep going. And so that's what I mean by like systemize it. Like, and then it's, you know, we're getting this same complaint 6 times in the last 3 weeks at installs. And it's always, we thought it was going to be this color and the guys ended up installing this color. That's a broken system.
Process. Yeah.
So like that's a broken system, broken process. Fix the process, create a new system to have that process no longer happen. And then you go from there. And so it's funny, like I always like, I'm naturally a marketing and sales guy, but I actually really enjoy the like operational inefficiency side and like watching Jack, my director of ops for the Valley Christmas Lights company, kind of like fix stuff. And it's funny, like that is oddly enjoyable as well. Like watching like, okay. And what I tell everybody in the program is like, if you have had the same problem happen more than 3 times, you have some broken process. Like, if you've got the same complaint from a customer 3 or more times, you're doing something wrong. And so like, whether it's like a window cleaner saying like, I've gotten 3 callbacks in the last month for streaks on the windows, I'll immediately look at that and go, okay, like, how do you fix that? And it's like, okay, is it a quality control issue? Are your crews rushing? Okay, let's fix the crews rushing. Let's create some sort of incentivization for lack of callbacks, something like that. Are we taking photos on company cam of every completed window, something like that? Or just go to, or our customers just being Karens. If that's the case, why are we not implementing a property walkthrough before we sign off on the job? Like, you know, something like that. And so that part's been oddly, like, it's been oddly noticeable to see that, like, that has been a universal trend for our customers. It's white knuckle, piss and vinegar to 100, 250. Then it's, you know, marketing and sales. They start running a little bit of ads. They start scaling ads a little bit. That gets them to, you know, 100 to 500K plus, maybe 700. And then everything past that is systems and processes.
That's awesome. Do you find that operators are often reluctant to install too much process? Or do they, you know, they come from maybe being a solopreneur and they're winging it, they know what to do, or just intuitively know what to do, and all of a sudden now they're having to build checklists and checks and balances and things. Is that natural for them, or do they adopt it pretty readily?
It's not natural for most guys. Like, it wasn't natural for me. It was more like I started creating systems and processes out of pain. Like, I'm dealing with the same problem 1,000 times. Like, this is annoying. I need to fix this. But it's funny because my group is pretty mixed. A lot of guys are in their 20s, and then I got a lot of dudes in like their 40s and 50s. So it's kind of an interesting mix. The young guys do view me telling them like, hey dude, this is like SOPs, this is company cam, like go get that, you know, this stuff like that. Like, and they'll just do it. Sometimes the guys with a little bit more trips around the sun are a little bit more reluctant to create new systems. And like a lot of the time it's just like, they just need it to be like explained a little bit more. And so It's funny because like most guys are pretty receptive to it when they come into the program, because like when you've paid to come in and have us fix your systems and your marketing and your processes, you're paying for like our brains a little bit. And so they're a lot more receptive to it there. It's the people I meet publicly. It's like the people I meet at conferences that they haven't paid. They're like, oh, that won't work for me. Like, that's the knee-jerk reaction. Like, that won't work for me. It's like, okay. And like, I tell this story a lot because my dad is like the most humble entrepreneur ever. Like, he was just like he was a mortgage guy, not in the home service space at all. And so he essentially was an owner operator for, 40 years, just like small mortgage brokerage in Seattle, did everything himself. He had like one little underwriter that did some of his paperwork, and that was it. And when he turned like 60 something, he ran into a guy in Hawaii that was in his space. And he was like, dude, this was like 2019 or maybe like 2018. The guy, he was like, he's telling his buddy he's thinking about retiring. And the guy was like, dude, before you retire, you have so much lead volume, just go hire 1 or 2 loan officers under you. Just try it for 2 years. Make them 1099s, whatever else. And so for the first time in my dad's life, he had like sales guys under him. And he immediately like 5x'd his income over, like, obviously the 2020 helped, right?
Yeah, great timing. Yeah,
great timing. But what was really funny is, he comes from like the Dave Ramsey world, where it was like he got rich that way. Like, we lived super below our means, like used cars, a budgeted family vacation a year, but I never had to worry about where a meal was coming from. Like, even in 2008, we just cruised right through it, and he was a mortgage guy, and that was not the case for most of them. Yeah. And what's really interesting is when he had the sales guy. So he brings on these sales guys, and my dad was like making like the business was making millions of dollars, you know, whatever else by the end. And he'd have the sales guy on, and the sales guy had never had a 6-figure year, ever, never had one. And he was in like his 40s, 50s, something like that. So he'd been in the industry for 20 years, 20, 30 years. And my dad was like, all right, like, hey man. So he's coming to my dad saying like, I need to, you know, make more money for whatever other reason. And my dad was like, okay, cool. So like, this is what you're going to do. These are your amount of dials. This is your process. This is that. Same way that I talk to my clients. This is what worked for me. It's what's going to work for you up until this point. And the guy would say like, oh yeah, that's not how I do it. That's not, you know, that's not how I, and like, he's a 1099. So like there is a line between like, do this, don't do this kind of thing. Sure. And my dad was just like, not even in that world at all. Just like, how can you like not have the self-awareness to like look around you and see that there's hundreds or thousands of people that are doing exactly what you're doing, making way more money than you, and you like think you know more than them, but the only thing that matters is the result. Exactly. Like that's the only thing that matters. And like that's something that I just turned 30. I was about to say I'm 20. I just turned 30 like 5 days ago. So what's interesting about this in like my 20s is this is something that I learned like probably about 25, 26, where like when stuff would go wrong in the business, I'd be so quick to be like, oh, it was because this customer was a dick. And it was like, oh, this employee was an a-hole. And like, you know, this, that, the other, you know, 1,000 different reasons. My vendor
always
raised their
external.
price. Yeah, it was always external. And it's actually funny because from like a philosophical standpoint, it's actually extremely freeing to take personal responsibility for everything that's happening in your business. So like, for example, I had a really bad run-in with an employee, that was like a lifetime friend. I don't want to get into it. But like in that moment, I was like, this is still my fault. Like objectively, every single person and their mother would be like,
that leader right there.
Yeah, that person's a scumbag. Like they did this, they did that, you know, whatever. That's what every sane, normal person would say. And there probably was some truth to that. But I hired him. Like that was it. I hired him. So at the end of the day, like I'm the owner, right? Or like if you want to, you know, I don't call myself a CEO because I don't have a board. It's like one of my pet peeves. But if you're the CEO, you are responsible for every action that the CF, CO, CE, like or CM, C whatever is doing under you. Like it doesn't matter what their story is. Like the CFO, like, oh, the CFO was just like screwing off and partying. That's why the result didn't matter. No, you hired them. They didn't get the result. That's it. And so that has like been largely freeing for me, like in all of these businesses, just full radical personal responsibility for everything. And so I try to convey that to the younger or like the guys in the program as well that are a little bit earlier on, because like, especially in the early stage, they're always like, this customer was a dick. Like this customer was that, this is this. And I'm like, yes, you're probably right, but it's still your fault. Exactly. Still your fault. You could have done a better process. You could have done this, could have done that. And so to kind of, you know, land the plane there, the guys in the program do take a lot of personal accountability and want to grow. That's why they've invested in the program. It's like the guys in my Instagram comments and my YouTube that are like, yard signs don't work. And I'm like, okay, there's literally, I can give you 300 examples across all trades where they do work. And so like, who's right? The people who said that they did or the people that said they don't? Like, but it's just like, you know, you probably did it wrong. You probably didn't do enough volume. You probably didn't do whatever. But they're just like, they would rather be right than correct the broken part.
I see that a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Let's transition a little bit to marketing. So 2025, I mean, as you mentioned, there's a lot more folks now, direct competition. You've seen them cropping up.
Oh yeah.
What's the play this year? How do you win?
Dude, how much time do we have? This is my favorite subject, by the way, like by far. I am obsessed with marketing, like online marketing. I love the game right now. You win right now. Yeah, you win right now in home services by being the best one at running Facebook and Instagram ads. I firmly believe that. Now, if you're in a trade that is still scalable with Google pay-per-click, I understand how that becomes more of an enterprise thing. So what I mean by that is like, let's just say that this advice is to people doing less than 2 million a year. Let's just preface that. Because if you're like a roofing company, Google pay-per-click's still going to be king for you. Facebook and Instagram will still crush. But let's just say like sub 2 million a year. Let's just call it that. So while I'm framing this that way. So sub 2 million a year. Facebook and Instagram is the biggest cheat code that you can have if you get good at it. And so just like we were talking about the yard signs, you'll have people say like Facebook and Instagram don't work for me or my business. That is the stupidest thing that you could ever hear somebody say. And I'll tell you like the easiest stat to tell you this right now. There's 190 million Americans on Meta's platform right now. 190 million. So you're telling me that Facebook and Instagram ads do not work in your business when more than half of the United States population, their eyeballs are ready for you to convert. And so for every business that says Facebook and Instagram ads don't work, I can find you 10 examples why they do. And so the most common ones are like cleaning companies and pest control companies will say Facebook and Instagram ads don't work. And Facebook and Instagram ads don't work on businesses like that are a monthly recurring revenue business if you're looking at it from a month over month standpoint. You have to look at it from a lifetime value of the customer standpoint, but most of these guys are so, want short term that they can't. Yeah. And so the cleaning company doesn't look at like, okay, I gave Facebook $100 today. Did it spit me out $300 of monthly recurring? You have to look at it like, okay, if I bought a customer for $300, they pay me, $100 something every month. By month 3, I recoup it. Lifetime value of this with churn is 11, whatever, you get it. And so Facebook and Instagram ads is number one because it's the only thing right now when you're new that you can pretty aggressively location target, but you can also generate leads, first name, last name, what service they want, whatever else, inbound leads, and build brand at the same time via video. And that's the part that people miss. And so what happens is if you can crack getting positive ROAS on leads, like, dude, we're in May right now, and my permanent Christmas light company is cracking paid Facebook ads just in lead forms selling permanent Christmas lights in May. Like, where there's no search volume for it. And so what I mean by that is we have to convince you through Facebook ads that like this is something you and your family should look into right now because there's no Google search volume for Christmas lights in June. There's just not. Nothing. In May and June, there's not. And we're very positively getting a ROAS on that, like extremely. And so I say that because if we can do it in permanent Christmas lighting, you should be able to do it in plumbing, windows, anything else. Permanent Christmas lighting in May. Like, I'm not talking about doing wedding lighting. I'm talking our ads right now are get roof line permanent color changing lights, and we are doing well with them. I'm not going to get into too many details there, but we're doing well with them. And so that's number one, because what happens is once you figure out get a 5, 6, 7x return on ad spend in there, what's happening too is even if they're not converting, your ads are showing up on people's phones.
Yeah, still building brand.
And you're building brand. And you're building brand, and you're building brand. And so I always tell people like the $30,000 residential install that we had came from Facebook, but it was coded in our CRM that it came through our organic website. And the only way I was able to track back that it came through Facebook was when my sales guy got on site. She was like, "Oh my gosh, your guys' ads are hilarious." And my sales guy was like, he had it in our system that it came organic because there is some nuance to like what.
Oh yeah.
Acquisition channel they come from. So my sales guys know where they come from. And so he's like, "Oh, I thought you came from our website." And she's like, "Oh no, I just Googled you after, but your ads are so funny." And she mentioned like an ad of me that like stuck out to her that was funny because we have some like zany video ads. And so my point was like, when you crack it, what will happen? And like we have people in Home Service Accelerator say the same thing. They'll say like, "Hey, I started running ads last week, but what's really interesting is I'm even seeing more call volume to my Google business." So they start running Facebook ads and Instagram ads, but then they start seeing their Google business get more call volume. And they're like, "Why is that?" And I'm like, it's pretty simple why that is, because you're building really strong brand with the video. And then what most intelligent buyers do, so like, "Oh, that company looks interesting. Let me go check out their reviews. Let me go see if they're legit. Let me see and they Google you. And then they go look at your Google business and everything else." So number one, Facebook and Instagram. By far. but you have to test multiple creatives. You don't just run one video and like whatever else. You have to like really do the legwork on that. And then outside of that, the thing that really exploded us was there's a company out in Arizona named Green Mango Pest Control. Their owner's got a pretty good social media presence. They exited for 9 figures. So, and I just listened to a podcast of him the other day. I built like a lot of our processes. Like I think I've talked to the dude maybe once on Instagram for a few messages, not friends with him at all. But like I owe a lot of like a lot of the insights that I've implemented into my business, I got from that dude's podcast and everything else. And one of the things that he talked about in the pest control that really stuck out to me was he said 1 out of 3 of their customers were coming from word of mouth or referrals in a podcast, which if you understand that business, you understand how, like why they sold for 9 figures. If they were getting 1 out of 3 customers completely for free in pest, it might've even been even better ratio than that. Yeah. And so, you know, I think he said at one point when they were selling, they had 33 or 34,000 customers on their pest control, like paying them like, I don't know, probably $50 to $80 a month. Like just insane, just like absolutely insane numbers with like relatively low churn. And one of the things that he said was like the thing that cranked our business was getting more referrals and word of mouth. And so what I did is I went back into Valley Christmas, was like, okay, we don't get a ton of referrals. We get referrals, but like it wasn't like night and day. And so if you look at like the 5-year period, it was in our first year was like 95% of our business came from cold traffic. Then the second year was like 80 something. Third year was like 70. Fourth year was like in the 60s. And then this 5th year, 45% of our business came from of our new business came from paid traffic, meaning more than half of our business came from referrals, organic, word of mouth. And so one of the things that we built was like, and this is part of the cycle in the Home Service Accelerator community, is like, I don't think that there's a better psychological moment to sell people than when you're on site doing something for their neighbor. Like that is like,
absolutely.
If you really just boil it down, that is like the sweet spot for getting more leads. Like it's because in home services, we're all viewed as like the plumber's crack car salesman right now because there's so many bad actors in home services. And so you're already on cold traffic ads and everything else. You're fighting the uphill battle of like, are these dudes legit? Are they going to send a crackhead out to my house in a beater pickup truck? They just don't know, right? When you're doing the job for the neighbor, you already have that super strong social proof because the Smith already hired them. And so I was like, okay, how do we hammer this down to the point where like we maximize this without looking obnoxious? And so the process we built was we get A-frames out in the street. So now we have the wrapped vehicles. So that's touch point 1. So we pull up, big mobile billboard pulls up. What's interesting though is not a lot of people like are going to explicitly call a truck wrap. It helps, but it's not like an immediate call to action the way you think. It's super good and you need to have it for a variety of different reasons, but it's not like you're going to drive that thing around all day and get 50 calls from it a day. What's interesting is we do that. So we put out the A-frames, and the A-frames are a more direct call to action. So we park the truck on the side of the road, park the van on the side of the road, pull out the A-frame. It's about, 4 feet tall, and it says, ours say like elves at work on the temporary lighting business. And then it says like, it's got a QR code to our website. It says, come ask me for a free quote or something like that. It's like a really called out, like, come bother us, come bother the crew. Because a lot of the time the homeowner just like doesn't want to bother the contractor, whatever else. And like some people might think that's stupid. I can tell you, like, I was walking my dogs the other day and there was an auto detailer cleaning a car outside of my curb. And he was like in the middle of the loud vacuum cleaning the car, and I wanted to get a card. And I actually felt like a little uncomfortable bothering him because I didn't know if he was, the owner, if he was a coworker, whatever, but they had the A-frame out. They had the A-frame out. So I scanned the A-frame. I was like, okay, I'll just deal with it that way. And it was so like, that's a normal thing that's going to happen. And I'm an outgoing dude. So a lot of these neighbors are probably going to be like less likely to go bother.
Sure.
And so the second thing is the A-frame. So we explicitly invite them with the A-frame, and it looks like a lot more inviting, but it also slows down traffic, which is ultimately what you want. You make it look like a safety thing. So you put it like halfway into the road from your butt of your car, but you want the soccer mom to slow down and be like, oh, the Smiths are getting their plumbing fixed. The Smiths are getting, whatever. Interesting, then put it in her brain. Oh, we need that. So like that's the second thing. And then when we're done, we like to to be honest, in temporary Christmas lights, we don't do this. We have at times, but for everybody in the regular trades, I like absolutely do this. So in the permanent business, we do it. We door hang the closest 15 to 20 neighbors just when they close out. Don't even door knock.
Yeah,
just
circle
hang
market.
out.
Yep.
Door hang. Yep. Sorry for the noise. Sorry for the dust. See ya. Like that kind of thing. I don't need to waste my operations team's time by making them try to be shitty salespeople. Just not going to work.
How effective do you find that circle marketing, kind of doing that 15 around or 5 around?
It's hard to quantify in that sense, because what we find is like when you do all of the process, the A-frame, the door hanger, they get dripped.
Oh, they all build on one another too, right?
They build on one another. And so some guys, like some months we'll see like guys like crush with the door hangers. Sometimes they don't. But I'm telling you, like, I tell these guys, like, you probably don't realize how impactful that door hanger was, because they might have like got the door hanger and then scanned your A-frame on the way out. Or they might have got the door hanger and then just Googled you. Like, I don't even scan the QRs half the time.
Yeah.
I just Google people. Like, that's like what I do. But you should get and it's pretty low investment risk, right? Like, you're getting door hangers for like
you're already there.
You're already there. If you have a 2-man crew, you're hanging 10 to 15 door hangers in 2 minutes. Like,
yeah, exactly.
So it's pretty minimal, but so that's the third thing, is the door hangers. Then we do like gift cards for the neighbors. So we give the homeowner a gift card for their neighbors, like $100 off us, and then their names on the back of it. And so we track it back to the homeowner.
I thought that was brilliant. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah. That one's actually, that's the best piece of organic content I've ever had consistently. I think that introduced me to a lot of big home service business owners on social media, because I see some big brands doing that copying my exact thing, which I knew they weren't doing it before. So I actually think that some people took that from me, which I love. That's
I hope they did. Yeah. I mean, I think for those that didn't pick up entirely there, like, you're given a gift card, the back of it has a little open blank spot for the person's name. And then they're giving it to a neighbor to save on their Christmas lights. And then when you recognize that one come through, you go back and you reward that original homeowner again, which is
correct.
It's awesome.
Yeah. Sorry. I guess, I didn't explain that well. Yeah. So essentially the front of it looks like a Best Buy gift card, but it's to us. So it's $100 off a Valley Christmas Lights Christmas light install. And then the back of it is still like, looks pretty, but it says gifted by, and it has a line. And then we write the customer that we just closed out their name there. So we just did a job for Bob Smith. We write Bob Smith on the back of the card and tell Bob, give these to your neighbors. Your name's on the back. When they get redeemed, we're going to send you $100 to this steakhouse. And people do it. People were asking for their steakhouse gift cards. It's crazy.
It's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and then we use the tap cards to get the Google reviews. Really hammer photo reviews. That's been big. Like, photo reviews have been really big. Like, I have like maybe 60 something reviews on my temporary lighting businesses GMB. This is funny because like it's not that many, but we're top 1 through 3 in basically the entire market that we want to be in, mostly 1 on the Maps pack.
That's awesome.
And we noticed that like we climbed exponentially when we got photo reviews.
Fantastic.
Not just reviews.
Yeah.
Photo
reviews. Yeah.
But it makes sense, right? Because if Google's trying to minimize fraud, what's way harder to fake?
For sure. For sure. Plus, those serve you really well because you have a visual product or service as well, which is great.
Yeah, so I would say like that's, from a marketing standpoint, that's been the biggest thing. Google Maps is like it right now. Like I don't think that's changing for a while.
Right.
It's
do you extend that like, feeling into just directories in general? I mean, do you find that being part of local directories serves you real well?
Honestly, like I haven't. I mean, maybe my team has done some work on that. Like, I honestly, like, as far as local directories, I don't really know like how exposed we even are in those. I will say one thing that's really interesting is, and this is maybe like a little bit more in the weeds, but we got reached out to last year by a local news company, like AZ Central out here in Arizona. And we were like, we're busy. Like, okay, let's just do it. Whatever else. They send out like an ASU kid to a job site. And like, I did like this little, just social media, not on the actual news, just like a social media hit on their, and it was on their website of just like, tips from a pro, how to do Christmas lights, whatever else. When we got done, I was like, the kid was nice, the nice article. We're not going to get a single job from that. Like, I knew, like, we're not going to get a single job from that. But they post it, and they post it on their website. And it actually is our highest authority backlink for SEO because they wrote an article about us from their super high authority website with really good SEO and tagged us in it. And it's our best performing backlink for SEO. And so I was like, oh, get more of that. So I actually hired a PR agency that just now for this company, for Valley Christmas and Valley Premiere, so that I can get local news hits as much as humanly possible for the SEO standpoint, and then eventually like maybe get on the local news. That certainly won't hurt. It's good for social media, it's good for PR, it's good for everything else.
That link.
Yeah, I want those links. Those are the backlinks. It's crazy. And it's why guys go get Better Business Bureau accounts, even though the Better Business Bureau is nothing. It's just a good quality thing for SEO.
Exactly. That's
no
great.
consumers going on the Better Business Bureau anymore.
No.
Ever.
Those are some great tips, though. Steve, thank you so much for the time and dropping some of this knowledge. I think hopefully people will now come follow you. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you or with the group?
Yeah, I have a YouTube, just my first and last name, Steve Hunsaker, and then my Instagram is just Steve. Let me check. I think it's _Hunsaker. Let me see. Yeah, Steve _Hunsaker on Instagram. You can DM me there, or you can follow the long form content on YouTube. We do about 1 to 2 videos a week that people are seeming to enjoy. So that'd be like the best place to find me.
We'll drop your details in the show notes as well. But man, if you found value in this, make sure you hit subscribe or share this with friends and colleagues that can also get value from this conversation. Steve, I really appreciate it. And wish you all the best. Good job.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. I love nerding out about this stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to do it again.
Yeah, man, for sure.